Hey everyone, I'm Acacia Courtney, and it's time for an inside look at one of Gulfstream Park's summer success stories. Trainer Chuck Simon may have a pretty small outfit with only 18 horses in his barn, but it certainly is mighty. He's already had 3 stakes winners in a month's time. It all kicked off with Zavarian's win in the $75,000 Raymond Earl, and then he had 2 more in the span of 1 weekend. We went over to his barn at Palm Meadows to catch up with his team and meet some of his horses.
It was a great weekend for us, winning 2 stakes on consecutive days. It would be nice for any barn, but for barns of our size, it's rare. And that was our 3rd stake win at Gulfstream in the last month, which was nice.
So you won the Miesque's approval on Summit of Speed Day with Air Bueno. How did he come out of the race?
He came out of the race great. He got a nice trip. Matt Rispoli did a great job tucking him in behind the speed and snuck right up the rail. And the one thing about that horse is he never runs harder than he has to, and that's why at 7 he's still a really sound horse that's doesn't have any real problems. It took us a long time to figure out how to ride him. He was a horse that would train great and wouldn't particularly run well. And we tried a couple different things, and Matt wanted to try a different way of riding him, and it's really paid off because he's done tremendous since then.
And he was running in Chile at the start of his career. So tell me a little bit about the journey with this horse, when you got him and how you got him to this point.
Well, I got a phone call from a friend of mine, Ozzie Nunez, who used to be up in the U.S. I knew him from Hialeah, and he's in Chile, based in Chile. He's a bloodstock agent, and he thought that he would fit here in the U.S. And he'd won a couple graded stakes down there, but his last couple of races hadn't been so good, and they were kind of looking to maybe send a horse up here. And I said, "Yeah, I'm game. Send him up." And it took, like I said, it took us a while. I mean, it takes usually 6-7 months for those horses to acclimate, but like I said, it took us a while to figure out, what he wanted to do. And I mean, I had tried blinkers, I had tried plugging his ears. I mean, we tried everything. We finally just tried a little different style of riding, where you don't really give him his head. You just keep, taking the bit up in his mouth and giving him something to run against. And that seems to have really turned him around.
Stablemate Zavarian was 5th in that race. How's he doing?
He's doing okay. It wasn't quite as good a ride as the other horses, admittedly, by Cornelio. He just kind of was looking for room, and every spot he went to closed off. And when he won the stake the month previous, he found a seam, and the other day he didn't, and that's just the luck or unluck of turf racing.
And then you had a big upset the next day with Killer Bird to win the Barely Even. Was that a surprise for you?
I thought she'd run well. I really think she's really is a dirt horse. She's much better on the dirt than she is on the turf. We just had such a hard time finding races on the dirt going long. So I wanted to take a shot with her on the dirt going long, and I wasn't. I mean, the stake was really the only option I had. So we were going in there thinking she would run better. I wasn't, thinking that we would win, but she was really game, and I was really proud of the way she ran. And she looked at the top of the stretch like she might be getting a little tired, but she fought back, and that was a nice surprise.
You mentioned Matt Rispoli. You guys have had a lot of success together lately.
It's interesting because he had come around the barn in March and was looking to get on some horses, and I put him on Zavarian, and he rode him terribly. And I told him, I said, if you're going to ride for me on the turf, you better learn to save ground, because I don't have any horses that can go 6 wide and win. And he learned from his mistake, because he's done an exceptional job, and for other trainers too. And it's just so important, saving ground on the turf in those 2-turn races. It's just a huge factor, and Matt gets that, and he's done really well, and I was happy to see him doing well for other outfits as well.
I know you've been a big proponent of year-round racing in Florida. Tell me a bit about your decision to stay here year-round.
Well, I had bumped around. I had left Kentucky in 2008, and we had gone to Pennsylvania, and we'd been in Illinois and New Jersey, and at some point you just want to get settled in one place and on one circuit. And Florida made a lot of sense when the Stronach Group took over the racing. I don't think I would have ever come if it was still colder. But they've done a great job, and the program is good. And I mean, we're here at Palmetto's, which is the greatest training facility there is, at least public facility. And the racing is strong here, and it's getting better. And they're racing people. And some of the places I were at, they were casinos that had racing, and here it's a racetrack that has a casino, and there's a big difference. And it shows in the way the horsemen are treated, and it just seems like a really good fit for me.
You were telling me a bit before about the difference in how you have to adapt to training in Florida. Talk to me a little bit more about that.
Well, yeah, it took a little while to kind of realize that because of the heat and the humidity, it's a constant here as opposed to up north, where even in the summer it's hot, but it does cool off in the nighttime. We give the horses a little bit more rest in between races. We give them an extra day off here and there. I mean, obviously we adjust the electrolytes and the salt intake and things like that, but here we just train them a slight bit easier than I would if I was at a different circuit.
You grew up near Saratoga, and I know you haven't been afraid to ship small strings up there in the past. Tell me a bit about your journey through racing in general.
Well, I grew up in Saratoga, and my first jobs weren't at McDonald's or bussing tables. They were at the racetracks and farms, and it was an interesting kind of industry for me, and it was the competition, and you grow up in Saratoga, you kind of are a little isolated because you don't realize that every small town doesn't have a big major racetrack. When you're a kid, you just know your own little sphere, and it was interesting to do that. And I wound up going to the racetrack industry program at the University of Arizona, and I actually worked on management side for a couple of years, but that wasn't my thing, and I gravitated back to the backside, and I'm still here.
You worked for several trainers leading up to your own individual career, and I know H. Allen Jerkins was one that really had a big impact on you. What are some of the most valuable things that you learned?
He was like an encyclopedia, but he wasn't the easiest guy to get things out of. A lot of times he would ask, you'd ask him a question, and he'd figure it out yourself. And he wanted you to think about what you were doing. And I had worked for some really, really good trainers, Nick Zito and Tom Skiffington, and Peter Ferriola in New York, and then Wayne Lucas for a while. And all of them had their own ways of doing things. They're all extremely successful. But Alan was, he was just so much different, and he just looked at everything from a different angle. And he would just look at things, and then you'd say to yourself, well, he would tell you, well, you should do this because of this, and then you think, well, yeah, that makes sense. I wonder why I never thought about that before. But the value of hard work. We worked hard, and he was right there with us every time. I never forget. He would tell us, we don't have as good a horses as Mott and Shug, and they got better horses than us. So if we just do the same thing, how are we ever going to win? We got to work harder than them. And we did. And I mean, it was everybody pitched in, and it was like a big dysfunctional family. But God, we did really good. And I mean, he knew more about horses just instinctually than anybody I've ever met. It was really. And the other thing was, he was a great person. He helped so many people that, and without ever asking for any credit or anyone even know. That was the lessons he taught you how to be a man, and not I went from being a kid to being a man working for Alan.
Tell me a bit about your operation and your team that you have now.
We've got a really good team. My assistant Susan Ditter has been with me for a long time, and she's an excellent rider as well. She's not as young as she used to be, so I can't get her on as many horses. So she kind of picks and chooses, and she gets on Zavarian and she gets on Air Bueno. So she doesn't She doesn't go chasing any empty wagons, but she does a great job and she works really hard. And I've got really good grooms, and everyone's dedicated, and they work hard on the horses, and we appreciate that.
You've had a great start to the summer, though. How do you keep this momentum going?
It's challenging when you have a barn of our size, and we don't really claim horses, so horses move up the ladder condition-wise, and the races get tougher, and you run out of spots. There's not as many spots, so I'm not sure. The condition book looks a little light for me the next couple of weeks, just because we run so much, and so many have won, which is a good problem to have. But I was talking to the owners of Killer Bird, and I have no idea where I'm going to run her because I wasn't expecting on winning, so I hadn't looked ahead. But we had a lot of 2-year-olds in, and most of them are not summer 2-year-olds. They'll be ready in the fall. So we kind of been trading out some of our older horses for 2-year-olds. So it might be a little slow for us, but we'll pick it back up hopefully in the fall.
The Summit of Speed features a day of 9 stakes races. There were 2 from the Simon Barn entered in the $75,000 Miesque's approval. While neither went off as the favorite, it was the Chilean-bred Air Bueno who came up the rail to find his way to the winner's circle. The very next day after Air Bueno's victory, the Simon Barn successfully pulled off another upset. Killer Bird went off at 19-1 in a field of 7 fillies and mares on the dirt, managing to pass the odds-on favorite Miss Hollywood at the wire. Even with a small number of horses, Chuck Simon has already demonstrated just how far you can go with skilled horsemanship, a little patience, and a lot of hard work.